podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. I'm here with A.W. Schultz. I'm Alexandria Burek. Today, we're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of automation and bringing robotics into factories. A.W. is going to bring a interesting perspective and insight gained through firsthand experience at a factory, talking about what companies need to think about and what they should do, and most importantly, what they should not do. I'm going to be talking from the worker's perspective. Everyone's talking about AI and robots replacing people's jobs. I am foolishly optimistic, as I self-proclaim, and so I have a bit of an optimistic take on how a worker can confront these kind of changes on the horizon and position themselves to become even more valuable at their organization. So to start it out, we'll go the macro route, and we'll let A.W. share a little bit of his experience from the past and bringing some robotics into a manufacturing facility here in the U.S. And then we can talk a little bit more broadly about kind of where I have some opinions about what industries I think are going to be leading the charge and which ones might be a little bit late to the game. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap it up with what the workers should consider and how they might be able to position themselves to be even better off as a result of these changes on the horizon. So A.W., go for it.
Right. I like this topic because we're talking about jobs that aren't probably going to be filled in the U.S., that are going away and aren't going to be around anymore. Yep. And very specifically, we're talking about U.S. manufacturing, because I think, and this is just kind of Alexandria's opinion, is that it's becoming more advanced, it's becoming more technical. Yep. And while people, there's data that supports the unskilled labor is leaving, and they're going into other jobs like construction or hospitality or things like that nature. But what the way we're compensating is adding automation, robotics, and the different technologies on that, and which is fun and exciting. However, there's kind of I'm going to say like a roadmap to it. I mean, just adding technology is great, and there's many companies that can completely automate your systems in that nature, and they will deliver on everything they say they have. But at some point, they're cutting loose, and you need to own it at some point. Even if it's subcontracting just the labor out. It's the maintenance that goes into these things is very delicate, and it isn't technical. Yep. And that's part of what we preach about. We talk about Industry 4.0 is understanding your facility's maturity level, because just throwing in multi-million dollars in technology and robots, while it on paper sounds great, but if you're not also investing into the foundations of it, like training the staff on how to maintain it, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. And that maybe not in the first year, second year, but down the way, it's things are going to happen where the technology is beyond what your skill set within the workforce is. Yeah. And the example that I was sharing with Alexandria was I had just started. I was working for a beverage company it was Gatorade, and we had incorporated, and this is like 2006, 2007, I think. We spent about $8 million on robots, and they were beautiful. I mean, there was like, if you've ever seen like the movie Aliens, it was like those kind of stuff. It was huge robots. And the purpose of them was to create a variety pack. So if you go into like the grocery stores and you see like two lemon limes, orange, and that was what we were doing. And
Wow.
so we'd package it and then go over this second line and do it. The problem we had is that we were constantly bringing engineers in to fix it, and it just we didn't have the skill sets in house. So we were constantly bringing these contractors in, and these guys are engineers. They look at the nuts and bolts on it, but what they fail to understand is that one, we didn't take care of it very well. It was just Gatorade is.
So you had no maintenance. You had no preventative maintenance in place here for these machines and these robots. Okay, so that's problem number one.
Yeah, and then we didn't know how to take care of them, and they'd get a crash or something would happen, and it's basically a reset. And we were trying to get the thing up and running. We wrecked the heck out of it. Ended up a couple years later, we gave these robots away, and then we just sent it to a co-packer that came down just unskilled labor, and they just did it by hand. And but we did it the wrong way. And that was, I think about that is we weren't mature enough as an organization to have that technology. We had the money, we just didn't know how to take care of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think about that. That's in my, foolishly optimistic perspective, though, that's going to be great for the workers who are unskilled and don't have any intentions or desires to become skilled in this changing landscape. There's plenty of organizations, I think, that are household names, brand names, that despite how they may appear, are still going to be struggling with having this foundation, right? We're talking about business process, we're talking about people, we're talking about really looking at this from a holistic standpoint of what do you guys need, right, to ramp this production up. Actually, it's funny, one of the guys I work with in the consulting space, he's helping a company look at this right now. They need to 10x their production, and essentially what he's doing is going through this list of, okay, well, where are we in terms of our maturity? What do we need to put in place before we can even consider the types of tech that would enable us to 10x our production? Because to your point, you can get the fancy, shiny robots, but if you don't have anything in place to maintain them, program them, and modify their systems to meet your production needs, that $8 million investment, like you said, goes out the window 2 years later because the business process did not match the level of advanced automation that you guys were bringing into the place. So my stance is, I think certain industries are going to lead the charge in automation. I think they're much more prepared to do so. And I think even within each individual industry, there's going to be a set of companies on the bell curve where there's going to be these late resistors who are just refusing to get on board with it and will wait till there's no other option and no way to manufacture goods until they incorporate that technology. You're going to have the middle group who will slowly but surely I'll see how they do it and let them work out the kinks a little bit. And once this becomes commonplace, then I'll consider it, and I'll take some of those people who've already done it and we'll bring them into our organization so they can, to AW's point, lay out the roadmap. They already learned their hard lessons at the early adopters, and there still has to be the early adopters, right? I think the early adopters are going to be the companies that are tech companies to begin with. I think it's kind of contradictory to think that tech companies wouldn't be leading the charge in automation, using robotics, and just being very advanced with their manufacturing processes. I think pharmaceutical companies are going to fall into that category. I think medical device companies are going to fall into that category. I think it's because I think food companies would be great to fall into that because they don't want to deal with the contamination. But I think the food company, compared to the others, might be a little bit late to the game because of the maybe missing tech. And this is all speculative, right? This is just something that we're thinking about and some things that we'd be interested to hear the audience's kind of take or experience. So if you work at one of these in these industries, comment on the show, message us, maybe even come and do a guest appearance so that way we could have a conversation and like really dive into this stuff. Yeah, so AW, what are some of the other don'ts that you picked up in this debacle?
Can I ask you a question quick?
Yeah.
Do you remember that idea you had about the drums?
Mm-hmm. I was just talking about that on Friday, actually, or Thursday.
So pretend, because we've talked about this before, like say we're going to do it, right?
Yeah. Our smart factory.
Our smart factory. Yeah. I mean, but would we invest all of it into just automation, everything, or do we just kind of lean into it? To me, I think I don't know much about the process into it. I'd want to just manually let's do this. Let's add a little tech, do this. Can I manage it, maintain it, add a little tech? And that's where I think the approach onto it. It's, I don't know. I mean, this is all your idea, so I'm not going to share much about your brilliant idea. But
thanks.
We were thinking about. I was just thinking about you talking about, like, if I was put in the position and I had to do this, how would I incorporate it and how much would I invest into it?
It's funny because I have a totally different perspective, totally opposite of you.
Okay.
So I think if I was going to start a factory today, 2025, I would want to start at the early adopter, full tech, fully automated as possible, because you start there and you fine tune and skill, you source the labor, the skilled manufacturing labor. The engineers are really who's running the factory, not the line worker, right? So you start there and then you make continuous improvements from that high baseline of automation, robotics, and tech-enabled manufacturing. The reason I say that is because it's a lot easier to start where like it's like no bad habits, right? So I would say if we went the route that you were proposing, and again, this is totally hypothetical, right? But like if you went the route AW is proposing, and you're like, yeah, maybe one day we'd like to have tech enabled, maybe one day we'd like to have more automation. All of a sudden, you're starting behind the ball, and now you've got the wrong people in place who don't have the mental bandwidth or vision to prepare the business for a completely tech-enabled automated manufacturing process. So now not only do you have to try to you would have to essentially wipe your workforce clean to get the ones in who need to do it and try to rebuild this process. I think you start straight away going for it, but that's like also my personality. So I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but that's what I think that's what I would do. And that's what, like, when I was he and I were talking about doing a smart factory, I was thinking straight out of the gates, white floors, all the stuff, start at world class and then fine tune from there and make modifications, pivots, and adjustments. Don't try to start middle of the road and then get up to world class.
Yeah, I think we disagree. And I say that just because there's so much. I've never started up a factory. So
I've never done it either.
I just like, if I can't grasp it and get my head around it and I can't solve these problems, I have a hard time expecting somebody else to do it. So that's kind of where my goes. But I like, going, it sounds awesome.
Go for it. That's it.
I told you the Gatorade story. That's what we did.
But you had a bunch of people who didn't understand it. That's why it failed. The people who signed the check, they weren't tech enabled. They weren't automated people. They were saying, yeah, we want the ROI.
They just kept writing checks. That's all they did. And then they finally, it's like, we're not getting the return that we expected out of this thing.
Right. Because they were missing a critical component, which is the right people.
Yes.
Process. Right.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, anyway, no need to digress into that side rabbit hole. But I do want to talk about like what I would do if I was a worker, right? So we talked a little bit about like what industries we think are going to be leading the charge. We didn't really talk about the ones that I think are going to be late to the game. I personally think, did you have any like immediate late comers to the automation side of the business? Or I think industrial packaging is going to be on the later end. They're certainly not going to be having the level of the advanced manufacturing practices as like medical device companies or pharmaceutical companies. I can't see that. Not to say that I don't think they'd want to put a roadmap in place to get there, but I think they're just going to be drastically behind the ball. So I think if your worker is not interested in getting upskilled, going that industrial packaging route might be a good spot for you to look.
What keeps me employed is the companies that love the automation and don't bring the people along with them. So, I mean, I'm complaining about it, but it pays my bills. So
yeah, right.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to switch gears here and go towards the worker, right? So if one of you guys are a worker and working in manufacturing today, anywhere from on the line directly doing the manual actions that drive the manufacturing process, up to even just say like a general manager or plant manager, right? If I were you, I would firstly make the decision. Am I interested in upskilling, or am I prepared to ditch this place when they, require skills that are beyond what I'm willing to bring myself up to? If I'm in the I'm going to move, I would just start researching, companies that are privately held, privately owned, family owned businesses, right? That would be one of the companies, like the types of companies that I would target if I wasn't interested in upskilling. I'm not going to talk too much about that. That's kind of a different topic here. If you're in the I'm interested in upskilling category, I would do 3 things. The first thing I would do is start researching. I would carve out some time at my job if you're in a white-ish collar role in the manufacturing landscape. If you're a line worker, you probably have some type of time to and from work to listen to podcasts like this one or others. You probably have an opportunity to do some Googling if you're taking public transit, whatever it may be. Do some research, understand what potential future technology will be used in your industry, right? Like you can literally ask Grok or ChatGPT or any of the AI bots to suggest what potential tech might be used and what type of automation would be used in your industry. Understand what it is. Just have a general high-level view of what might be used. Then I would actually reach out to your manager. So whoever's your manager or your manager's manager, connect with them and say, hey, I'd just love to hear what the direction of the company is with regards to automation. What are you guys feeling? Are you talking about it? Are there any plans to automate? If so, I would just love to be engaged with that conversation, right? Open the door for yourself to be a part of the conversation, a part of the solution. One thing AW and I always talk about is engaging the people who the change affects, right? So if you're at a company that is going to be leading the way in automation and tech-enabled stuff, they're going to be probably glad to have somebody who's thinking about this. You're going to be seen as probably an exceptional worker and leading in your peer group, and it positions you to have a seat at the table. And then the last thing I would do is I would look at my skills, and I would look at the potential automation that's going to go into my factory. And then I would think about, okay, if I'm a planner, here's how I think, and I would lean on AI to ask and say, well, how would automation affect my job as a planner, and what technology should I familiarize myself with? And then, just kind of rinse and repeat that with whatever role you're in. So if I'm a manager, if I'm a maintenance person, if I'm a X, Y, and Z, what type of automation would be used in this factory in the future? And how can I prepare myself? What skills do I need? What education or training and certificates? And then you can even go so far as ask your organization to, pay for that or sponsor you to go and get those skills because you have an innate knowledge for this business, this industry, etc. And you can, that makes you turnkey for them. And then now you've just secured yourself a job in whatever future landscape there might be. But I still think that I think those are really the 2 paths for the worker in manufacturing today. Is either you're going to make the decision to upskill, you'd be best to partner with your organization in doing so, or you're going to say, I'm not going to upskill, I'm going to stay at this level of contribution, and I'm going to go find companies that are less interested in automation, less prepared for automation. Apparently, you could reach out to AW, he might have some recommendations, and stick with the companies that are just not that interested, because I think that there's always going to be companies that are not that interested. I know a 30-year-old who has just now decided to accept credit cards payments for his solopreneur business that he runs. And I just thought that was wild to me, that he was previously taking checks. So if there's 30-year-olds out there taking checks and going to the bank on Saturday to deposit them, there's surely going to be plenty of analog businesses that have space for a factory worker. So that's my take on that.
I share with you a failure. I've also had success.
Cool.
And one of the ones I was a part of this project, and it was a national project. So we bought I want to say 10 or 12 of these case packers. And they put the boxes and the bottles in there.
Yeah.
And they ran it well because they had a budget for training. And we did factory automated testing. So before they shipped the actual piece of machine, we went and checked it out. So there was a couple operators and mechanics. I got part of it, and a supervisor. Oh, by the way, it was in Germany. We flew to Germany to check out, and it was a great time, by the way. It was fun, and they had a good factory there too, by the way. And but we involved everybody into it, and they sent the project manager. She was responsible, so she had to get with each of the plants. And I don't know how many plants we had, but like I said, we bought several of these packers, and they're a great product. But she was responsible. She kept on going to Germany with a new group, and they tested it out. And the vertical startup, when the machine arrived to when it came out, it was seamless because everybody was involved, and we had to go through a checklist. We had responsibilities when we were there. It had to be able to demonstrate we did meets these requirements, and they after we were like the 6th or 7th plant, so they had gone through the rigor already, so they had all the answers. But it was we put the money into the budget for training and bring in the operators, and those are going to take care of the equipment along with us. And they had an input into it, and it people forget about these projects, but it was just it was seamless. It was seamless. It was just like that day. There was no props.
It's the old adage of going slow to go fast, right? You guys went incredibly slow. You were very methodical. You tested a variety of scenarios that could potentially, you spent the time thinking about the scenarios. You built the scenarios and a test environment for those different scenarios. And then because you took the time to actually go through and work through that checklist, modify that checklist as additional plants were brought on, etc., when you actually turned it on, it actually worked because you had done all the work up to that point to ensure its success. And I think that goes even back to the people conversation, right? Like that project manager was obviously very skilled, and I'm sure she commanded a high price, and I'm sure she was double that in her value by making sure that this machinery worked. We had the right people in place to do it, and all these different scenarios. So that's a really interesting win to share, and a really cool experience. I'm sure that you can help other organizations with. I'm sure you just have a plethora of knowledge on that. So, are we clocking out?
Yeah, I could keep on going on this. I got more stories, but I think we're clocking out and like finished goods.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right. Well, AW, thanks for sharing some wins and some losses about automation. And hopefully if you're a worker out there, you've got a little roadmap of your own to see how you fit into this automated and robotic landscape of manufacturing here in the US. So best wishes.
Bye.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.